Welcome friends to another r/ProRevenge video. Today we've got a story of an absolutely evil boss and the revenge they so deserved. But first, the story from Building Designer 101. Karen asks for a repair. We comply. So I own a little construction firm and we delivered our last building a few years ago. For context, where I live, the underground water level is very close to the ground. So our parking spaces underground usually have to be waterproof, as we're talking about 2.000 meters squared of concrete. There are bound to be some cracks and leaks, and we'll fix it in due time. In comes Karen. Her parking spot had a crack that was putting out a little water, and every time she got out of the car, she had to step on a wet surface. No puddle, just wet. Nothing wrong there. Our obligation is to fix it. But this woman goes and starts calling me and our team every hour, screaming, disrespecting my employees, calling them stupid, saying she's gonna sue if we don't fix it today, as we all try to calmly explain that we would do that after the rain season is over. But she just won't have it. So we come by and do the repair on our parking spot yesterday, in the rainiest week of the year. Because of the repair, she has to park her car on the street instead of the garage. For a week. I may or may not have been a little overly cautious on the time the concrete takes to be done. The streets are literally flooded, 2 to 3 centimeters water level, and now she has to wet a little more than the bottom of her shoes to get home for a week, and that just gave me a little bit of peace. For somebody like this who goes and harasses you left and right, every single hour has something to complain about, is that the kind of person that makes you go back, re-inspect your work and go, I'm not sure if the concrete truly set in well enough here, we're gonna have to redo it, it'll be another week. You know, really make this Karen pay for it? Let me know if you guys think that's the kind of treatment this Karen deserves in the comments down below. Our next story is from Santa's other brother. Useless engineer can't give me complete drawings, then asks why I didn't use his design. VP of Engineering shows up one Monday morning, large drawing rolled up under his arm. Both strike me as unusual. A, he would have usually sent someone else, and B, what's up with the giant paper? We always used 8.5 by 11. VP says, we need 2 of these by Friday. Toolmaker says, okay, let's look at the drawing. I check the title block to see who drew this masterpiece. Oh, him again. This guy has a reputation of leaving dimensions off of his drawings. The toolmaker says, missing dimension here and here, don't know what this is, missing dimension here and here, shall I continue? The VP rolls up the drawing and says, I'll be back. Okay, no problem, stuff happens. Tuesday afternoon, the VP comes back, large drawing under arm. Toolmaker says, okay, let's look at the drawing. Missing dimension here and here, don't know what this is, missing dimension here and here, shall I continue? No idea if this guy made any changes or not. VP rolls up his drawing, I will be back. Deadline hasn't changed, clock is ticking. Wednesday, just before lunch, week is half over. VP comes back, large drawing under arm. Toolmaker says, okay, let's look at the drawing. Missing dimension here and here and here. We can keep playing this game, or I can make you something that works. VP rolls up the drawing and says, make me something that works. Takes the drawing with him. Drawing never comes back. I adjusted the design to avoid some possible issues. Made it my design. Friday morning, he has his parts. The parts are installed Friday afternoon and start durability testing. The parts fit fine, worked fine, durability testing completed, 0 problems. 2 weeks later, Useless shows up. They wanted him to copy my design onto paper. Useless engineer says, why didn't you use my design? Toolmaker says, first, you had 3 tries and couldn't give me a complete drawing. Second, I wanted it to work. He left. If that engineer had any kind of self-confidence in the quality of their work and their ability to do their work, I can only imagine that it was utterly crushed when Toolmaker said, I took it over and made it my own because, essentially, yours was just never going to work anyways. That had to be one of the biggest ouch moments in that engineer's life. Basically being told anything they did would just never work. Our next story is from Silly Willy 82. Sold roommate's bicycle for phone bill I was blamed for. Many years ago, roommates would split a communal phone bill. We also had long distance charges applied. I was living in a house with 4 women and 1 other guy. He was the timid, peaceful hippie type, and I was a bit more rough around the edges type. I had the house reputation as a wild card, and I was. One thing I wasn't is a liar. So I was caught off guard when cornered about charges not spoken for on the bill. We had a system where the bill would get passed around the house, you would highlight your calls and pay your share. This month's bill was several $100s and no one would claim the charges. I was immediately blamed because I had several friends who lived abroad and these were foreign numbers. So as I sit there getting berated by 4 women, one says she's going to figure this out and calls one of the numbers. It was a sex line. Now the girls have doubled down on me. I held my ground and wouldn't give them money. Doing so would admit guilt anyway. Several days later, I'm cornered again, but met with an apology. Turns out one of the girls was recanting how bad I was to hippie guy's brother when he tells her his brother's done this before. I was livid, mainly because he'd been sitting there all innocent while I was taking the heat. So I sold his bicycle while he was gone for a couple of days and let him think someone stole it. He was super upset about it. It was an expensive bike at the time. It was a mid-90s Giant or Cannondale, pretty sweet bicycle for a stinky hippie. I sold it for something stupid cheap too, like $200, just enough to cover the phone bill. Now getting girls to pay for their share of toilet paper would be my next challenge. I mean, I definitely understand not wanting to be on the hook or having to pay any portion of a ridiculous call charge, but it is kind of surprising that when they have a communal phone bill, that they would go and basically part it out by phone call. I don't know if I would be a fan of that system regardless just because I'm a private person. Our next story is from Stinky Junkrat. Make fun of my family for being poor? Say goodbye to your Mewtwo card. So this happened back during the time the first Pokemon movie came out back in 1999 when I was 11. I had a friend, let's call him Charlie. Charlie was a spoiled kid in an upper middle class family. Charlie was the type of kid who would call his mom a witch and told his parents to shut up. The worst part is all his mom would do was yell at him with no real punishment. No timeouts, let alone a spanking. My family was a typical poor Asian immigrant one. We bought only essentials and we never really had any toys growing up. So when the first Pokemon movie came out, there was a special Mewtwo card made for that movie. In order to get this card, you had to spend $30. It was the pride and joy of Charlie. One day I came over to Charlie's house and he was showing me the card for the first time. He said how cool it was and just loved how it was a shiny. Then he looks at me and says, "But you'll never get one because your parents are poor, haha." We had been friends for 4 years, and something in me snapped when he said that. I love my parents, and even at a young age, I could tell how hurt my mom would get when they couldn't afford Christmas presents for us. Just then, his mom yells for us to get ready because my parents were there to pick me up. Charlie then leaves the room to use the washroom, and I take that opportunity to pocket the Mewtwo card. I then went into the bathroom after Charlie came out and flushed the card in the toilet. My parents came to pick me up, and it wasn't until that night Charlie's mom called my parents and told us Charlie was crying that I stole his card. I told my mom I never stole because technically I didn't. I let my mom look through my collection of cards and everywhere in my bedroom because I knew she'd never find it. I'm 33 now and I still laugh at that memory from time to time. I told my parents when I was in my 20s and they just laughed and said, "Good." Honestly, I bet a lot of kids wouldn't have that forward thinking and actually would take it, so good on OP for not being selfish enough to actually keep the card, just, making sure Charlie can't flaunt it anymore. This next story is from Hokey Pokey Guest List. Bucket Woman versus My Dangerous Dog. The petty revenge continues. So the Bucket Woman's not learned her lesson. The first thing we did was add more security cameras, so now most of the property's covered. And we were shocked to see how often she was coming onto our property and looking through our windows. I felt sick to my stomach. The reason she knows what's on my washing line is because she's coming into our yard and checking. Not going to lie, I had a bad period where I just blamed myself for bringing everyone else in the household into this. We spoke to the kids and they find her annoying but not creepy, if that makes sense. We're checking in regularly with how they're coping. Martin hand-delivered a letter to the Bucket Woman telling her she's not allowed onto our property. Any communication about neighborhood issues should be directed to my solicitor, card attached to the letter. Since then, Martin has diligently checked the security footage and reported every instance of trespass on the police non-emergency line. A few days later, we had a visit from the police. the bucket woman rang 000 and said I had a dangerous dog which attacked her. She claimed she was injured getting away from the dog attack. The police checked our house and yard and didn't find a dangerous dog. They did find 2 house cats, a house rabbit, and the disemboweled corpse of a catnip mouse, which was not taken for a forensic examination. Martin pulled the security footage. I've been asked not to describe it in detail, but I can't decide what was funnier, the footage itself or the sight of the police officer trying to keep a straight face. Also, if you do trespass on your neighbor's property and you startle easy, say at an angry indoor cat, it's always quicker to run through an open gate than a closed one. Petty revenge component. I remain a free woman. The little cat is not declared a dangerous dog and gets her favorite tuna treat, lots of head pats, and a new catnip mouse. Martin gleefully adds another report of trespass, and Bucket Woman looks like an idiot. Our next step was to replace the old side gate with something more secure. That led to more escalation from her side and more petty revenge on ours. But cutting off her access to the backyard still hasn't stopped the Bucket Woman. We still find her in the front yard looking through our windows, including mine and Martin's bedroom window. Our front yard is a quagmire when it rains, so we regularly find her tracks. Martin is taken despite cleaning the garage every time he sees her tracks. The fence posts lying along the shared fence have turned into our hard waste pile. Every time he catches her trespassing, he adds a bit more junk to the pile. It's probably driving her crazy, but there's nothing she can do. I'm just wondering, at what point do you have enough of a case where the police are actually going to come out and do something? Why is it that they can call in a non-emergency report so many times of trespassing and never are they actually just going to come out and charge this person with all these repeated accounts? Does OP have to initiate a court session? By the way, if you're enjoying these stories, make sure to hit those like and subscribe buttons down below so you never miss any of my daily videos. Our next story is from Magnus40. Never let an idiot see things half done. In a contract database management job I once had, I inherited a database that needed to be transferred into our system. The process is straightforward but lengthy. First, you verify the data is valid. This can be a long process. Next, you sanitize the data in case you have oddities that the new database can't handle, like unprintable characters in the text. It's surprising the damage a TM trademark symbol can do to a text-only database that's not set up properly. Then you move the data into your new format, sort out column mapping, etc., check, and upload. I estimated that I would need a month to do the work, possibly 6 weeks once I got into the details, and so I started. My boss did love a metric, so I had to post daily updates of the progress in a spreadsheet with lovely charts and graphs. Pretty simple to do, a quick Excel spreadsheet and some pretty shiny things to keep him amused. At this point, I should point out that my boss was quite an aggressive manager. Not violent aggressive, but he was young and had his eye on higher things. He would set tight targets and railroad people into meeting them often, making them work long hours. As a contractor, my hours were fixed, so this wasn't an issue for me. He was all razzle-dazzle style and zero substance. No technical ability and was basically a bullying used car / double glazing salesman with a recent management degree. A lot of the data checking and correcting could be done auto-magically or at least semi-auto-magically. Things like verifying that imported data conforms to our fixed lists like supplier names or security classifications, etc. Those are quick and easy. Verifying and changing certain codes was a simple matter of lookup tables or a little bit of SQL to extract the data we needed from a field in our format. Verifying and correcting the data format, in example the date format or text lengths, etc., is automatic as well. But then you get to the fiddly bits that take ages to do. Some of the data needed to be checked offline, potentially by looking up documentation and manuals. It's the Pareto principle. 90% of the work takes 10% of the effort, and the remaining 10% take 90% of the time, effort, and stress. Well, I went for the low-hanging fruit and smashed 90% of the data in the first couple of days, all the automatic stuff. At this point, I know I should have managed my manager better, but I was target-focused on the database. He managed to slit the leash and tell the customer that it was almost done and set a delivery date 3 weeks early to qualify for a performance bonus. I was a contractor, so I didn't qualify for any bonus. I found out via back channels that he had shifted the date, and I could have said something, but I knew it would have taken 4 weeks, so I just carried on and said nothing. By day 3, he noted that my daily rate, measured by data fields verified, had crashed. I was done with auto-checking and was on to manual checking. His first move was to demand that I stay late. I had a clause in my contract regarding my rate increase if I was asked to work more than 40 hours in the week, and it required senior management approval and a large rate hike for me. Day 4, he was sweating. Day 5, he was yelling at everyone. He had screwed up by shifting the date because it took just under 4 weeks to complete, and by moving the date to the left, he had made a contract change so that we were now, technically, 3 weeks late on a 1-week project instead of just under time on a 4-week project, but not under time enough for him to qualify for a bonus. We had a flexible contract that could be changed if both parties agreed. Shifting to the left was simple. Both parties agreed, but the customer didn't agree to moving it back to the original date. Instead of him qualifying for a bonus, the company was hit by a penalty clause for late delivery on a deadline that was moved for no valid reason. Senior management descended like a ton of bricks, and he was moved to a different part of the company. I escaped the flak, and we got a new, better manager. It's just nice to see that sometimes when people in management make decisions solely for their own personal bottom line, that when things go south because of it, they actually get held responsible. It feels like that just doesn't happen enough. This next story is from Lens98. Waste our time? We'll waste yours. While doing our photography A-level, my friend and I decided to drive to a local National Trust site to do a photo shoot, definitely not to have a spliff. While driving through a quiet side road, we encountered a tractor and had a quad bike stopped, taking up the whole road. Both drivers turned around to look at us, and instead of moving the quad to let us through, they just carried on with their conversation for another 10 minutes. So when they finally finished and the quad driver wanted to move on, my friend positioned the car in the middle of the road, turned off the engine, very slowly rolled a ciggy in clear view of the quad driver, put his feet up on the dash, and smoked his rollie while making full eye contact with the driver. I mean, to be fair, OP and their friend had way too much patience, I feel, in this situation. If somebody is literally in the street having a conversation that just keeps going on and on, wouldn't most people out there just start laying into the horn? Throw in some good yelling, "Hey, get out of the street!" This next story is from Proxy. My sister keeps on taking my stuff, so I hid her car keys and made sure to take the AirTag off. For the past few months, my sister's been taking my clothes, makeup, food, etc. And no matter how many times I ask her not to, she continues to do so. Putting a lock on my door and my name on my food has not stopped her. This has been happening for a while, but what finally tipped me off was when I heard her on the phone making fun of me about my text to her about not eating my food that I bought and prepared myself. She leaves her keys by the back door, so my petty self took her car keys and hid them in a rarely used cabinet, and made sure to remove her AirTag so she can't pin it. Good luck getting where you need to go tomorrow. Apparently OP went on to say that after a while, they ended up just putting them in a dumpster. This quickly went from a relatively harmless prank to just being a total jerk for no reason. Why would you throw away their keys? I know they steal your stuff, but it just feels a little far. Our next story is from Inevitable Appeal 790. Sure, I'll do your homework again. When I was 12, a popular girl in my class manipulated me into doing her homework. She told me she had to attend a funeral and couldn't complete her math homework on time. I sympathized with her and agreed to doing her homework that night. The next day, I passed her homework assignment to her and watched her hand it to the teacher. Later on in class, I overheard her conversation with someone else. I heard her say that she went to her cousin's birthday party last night and had a lot of fun. Of course, I was upset and felt betrayed. She came up to me after class and asked if I can do her homework again since she's still grieving over the loss of her family member. I told her I understood her situation and would do it for her again. When I got home, I only ended up doing my own homework. The next day, she came up to me asking for her homework. I told her I forgot to do hers, and seeing her angry expression was priceless. After that, she never asked me for another favor. I think that's a very, very light revenge for somebody that's going to go and fake a family member's death as a way to get you to do something for them. I hope now that this girl's older, they can look back at that moment and realize how cringeworthy and horrendous of an act it was to pretend that you were grieving over a family member's death. Our next story is from Santa's other brother. Millwright brings help to intimidate Toolmaker. Me doesn't work. A millwright, also known as an industrial mechanic, should be able to handle routine mechanical repairs. They're a jack of all trades, with a working knowledge in a variety of fields. Some stuff is specialized, broken bolts are not specialized. This one millwright, Curly, brings me something with a broken bolt jammed in it. I could see where someone had tried to get the bolt out. Okay, as a tool maker, I have the tools, equipment, and experience. I get the bolt out in a few minutes. A few weeks later, he brings another that he had not bothered to try to fix himself. I fix it, then ask him why he can't do this himself. He's made it known that he makes more money than I do, yet he can't do something so simple. A few weeks later, another one. The broken screw isn't even tight. Foreshadowing. I give him a real hard time on this one. Weeks later, I'm in my work area, in the middle of an important conversation with two vice presidents. VP of Manufacturing and VP of Engineering, serious stuff. Around the corner waltz the three stooges, Curly the millwright, Larry the electrician, and Mo the maintenance supervisor. The polite thing to do would be to turn around and leave, so of course they come over and interrupt our conversation. Mo the maintenance supervisor says, "We need you to take out this broken screw," and hands me a block. I say, "You guys should be able to do simple tasks like this." Mo, the maintenance supervisor, says, "Ah, no, laddie, 'tis not me job, blah, blah, blah." I look down at this block, locate the broken screw. As I'm talking to Mo, I push my thumb on top of the screw and give it a twist. It's loose. The head snapped off, but there was nothing holding the screw. I keep talking to him as I unthread the broken screw. Laying it on thicker because I know I've won, I say, "Hold out your hand." Mo says, "What?" I say, "Your hand, left or right. Hold it out like this." He holds his hand out. I drop the broken screw in his hand. I say, "You mean like that? Why can't you guys do this? You make more money than I do. Please try and earn it." All three stooges, their heads drop, not a peep, and they retreat with their tails between their legs. Vice presidents didn't say a word. Stooges never brought me another broken bolt. I think this is pretty safe to say that it doesn't come down to their skill level or the tools they have. They just don't want to put in the effort, right? Even if that effort is, they don't want to put the effort in to learn how to do something, even if it's easy. Our next story is from Cat Zub, Delicious Coffee versus Angry Bird. A few years ago, two of my friends hid one of my favorite stuffed animals in my flat. It's a quite big Angry Bird plushie, the yellow one. I searched for like an hour in front of them who were making fun of me, couldn't find it. At one point I went on the balcony, and through the window I saw the Angry Bird was hidden above the fridge. I didn't say anything and pretended to give up on my searches and pretended to be moody. Later, they told me that if I make them coffee, they would eventually tell me where the Angry Bird is. I said I would. I went to the kitchen, made them a nice coffee topped with loads and loads of Tabasco sauce, hot sauce. I let them drink while I was in the kitchen. I heard their screams and then went back to them with the Angry Bird in my arms. Depending on the friend group and the chemistry, I could see something like this being funny, but when it's something you legitimately care about dearly, it's not very funny almost ever for you to go and take that and hide it. Our next story is from Efficient Finding 34. Not enough sauce on your pizza? Say no more. My first job while in high school was making pizzas. This older lady ordered a thin crust pizza with extra sauce, so we put the usual amount of extra sauce on it and sent it out. For reference, 1 ladle is normal sauce and extra sauce is 1.5 ladles, so she ends up calling back to complain that there wasn't enough sauce, which is fine. Then she proceeds to lecture me about how the youth is lazy and whatnot. I told her we did put extra sauce on it, but she kept on. So we offered her a refund or a credit, or to remake it, she asked for a remake. So, annoyed, I decided to put triple extra sauce on it. Probably 4 ladles, way too much. Also, a thin crust where I worked was pre-made and could only hold a certain amount of sauce because the crust only had a small lip around the edge to contain the sauce and the toppings. So the sauce was just about spilling over the edge. We cooked it and sent it out. She then called back and I was lucky enough to be the one who answered the phone. So I'm thinking, crap, let's get this ear beating over with. She then proceeds to tell me that the second pizza we sent out was one of the best pizzas she's ever had. Revenge with a happy ending? This story is great because it makes me think about those moments where you're in total fear. You expect to have some kind of backlash or a negative reaction from something or somebody. Whoever it is, they're like, this is, and you're like, oh god, here it comes. But then they drop the amazing, this is amazing. And you get that simultaneous dopamine and relief, and it's amazing. And our final story of the day is from Ashley or Else. Make a developmentally disabled boy cry? Lose your family. My former boss is the worst human being I've ever met. He did all sorts of things to mess with anyone he didn't like. So a while ago, I was at a family event in a local park, walking with a young boy from our family who's developmentally disabled with Down syndrome, Ben. Ben does fairly well, all things considered, but he's always been sensitive to anyone making fun of the way he looks or his condition. We're just having a good time on our little stroll, Ben and I both enjoying the day. Along comes my boss walking towards us. I'll call him Rob. I cringe at seeing him, but smile and say hello to play nice. Rob says, there's something you don't see every day, a pair of ugly R words walking together. Ben bursts into tears as Rob laughs and walks off. I deal with Ben and ignore Rob. I'm super pissed and trying to calm Ben down because for a few minutes he was totally distraught. Finally, I get Ben to focus on how he has me and a lot of other awesome friends and family, and that Rob's a stranger and what he thinks doesn't matter. We walked some more, and I saw that Rob was at the park with his wife and teen daughter having a cookout, and he'd apparently been on his way back to his family from a trip to the toilet when he saw us. Back to being super pissed, I went back to our gathering and talked to an adult cousin of mine, Jake, telling him what happened. Jake wanted to get revenge on Rob, but I reminded him that this was my boss. I didn't want Rob to be able to know the revenge had anything to do with me, because then he'd make my work life even worse than he already had. So Jake asked me for anything I knew about Rob that might help. I told Jake a bunch of things about Rob, but the relevant info here is that Rob liked to drink a particular kind of locally made beer at a certain bar. Rob had talked about having drank there on the previous Friday night while his wife and daughter were away visiting her family. Also, Rob had recently told a story at work about his wife's obsession with a particular little green fictional character. Let's call it Yaby Boda. Turns out his wife kept a stuffed Yaby Boda on their bed at all times. I wasn't there for the revenge setup itself because I didn't want Rob to see me, but Jake filled in the details afterward. It was basically this. Jake approached Rob and put an arm around his shoulders and tried to kiss him. Rob pushes him off and says, "What are you doing?" Rob's family is now paying attention. Jake says, "I'm just so excited to see you, sweetie. Friday night was so amazing." Rob says, "What are you talking about?" Jake says, "Seriously? You're going to act like you don't remember now? I know you were a bit tipsy after all those specific local beers at the local bar, but certainly you remember what happened later." Rob says, "Nothing happened later, or ever. I don't even know your name." Jake says, "Really? You were screaming it on Friday." Rob, turning red, says, "You lying son of a..." Rob's wife, interrupting, said, "Listen, I don't know who you are, but this is my husband. I'm sure you have him mistaken for someone else. Please just leave us alone." Jake says, "Oh no, I'm not mistaken. We had the best sex ever on Friday night, and now he's acting like he doesn't even know me." Rob's wife says, "I told you, this is my husband, you're mistaken." Jake says, "Oh, maybe I am. I guess it was someone else who took me back to his place on Rob Street and had great sex with me on the bed right next to Yaby Boda. Sorry." Jake turns and walks away. Rob's wife says, "Oh my god, Rob, what the freak is wrong with you? You're gay now, really?" Already long story made a bit shorter. Rob's wife wasn't real happy with him anyway, and this was apparently the tipping point that made her file for divorce soon thereafter. Rob frequently complained at work in the following months about how he didn't care about his wife, but really missed his daughter and how much it sucked to live in his new place compared to his old home. Every time he complained about his lack of a home life at work, I knew he did it to himself when he was mean to a developmentally disabled kid. The best part is he never figured out I was involved at all. If you're that kind of person that can treat and act like that to other people who are disabled, honestly, I feel like this might just be karma coming back to bite you, and I don't even believe in karma. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. Now, if you want to hear another revenge story that was way crazier than any of the ones in this video, click on that left video. Or if you missed my latest video, check out the one on the right. That said, I'll see you all next time with some more stories.